Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My notes are wrong here, and welcome to the Audit Committee's interview for WSSC's Water Inspector General Appointment Committee. We are joined by our two candidates, Mr. Cantor and Mr. Green. The committee will recommend potential Inspector General candidates to the WSSC commissioners. The committee will consist of one WSSC commissioner from Montgomery County, one from Prince George's County, one from the public selected by the Montgomery County Council, and one from the public selected by the Prince George's County Council. We have two candidates with us today. Mr. Cantor and Mr. Green, I have 6 questions for you, and then my colleagues may have additional ones. And I'll try to begin in alphabetical order as we normally do, and then switch the order each question just to make it fair. This shouldn't take too long, and I think you have received the questions in advance, right? And we have received your both of you have impressive resumes and careers. Okay, Mr. Cantor. Briefly discuss why you are interested in serving on the WSSC Inspector General Appointment Committee and explain what in your background will assist you in this role.
Great. Well, first, thank you for having me. Really honored to be here and be a part of the process. But yeah, I mean, to address that, personally, I've lived in the county pretty much my entire life. Grew up here, went away for college for a little bit and lived over the line in DC for a few years. But other than that, lived here my whole life, living in Bethesda now. So you're always looking for ways to contribute on a personal level. And then professionally, it coincides with my professional life. Currently, I'm a real estate attorney, specifically a title settlement attorney. So we work closely and directly with WSSC on a daily basis. So I'm intimately familiar with their process of transferring water accounts over, getting water meter readings, everything they do, and seeing closely what works for them, some things that don't necessarily work, and that's what made me interested in getting involved in this process and helping out however I could.
Thank you very much. Mr. Green.
First of all, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to appear before you. I've been a county resident since 1970. I came up here first to go to law school, and I like Montgomery County, and I've been here ever since. And to that end, I've been involved in various, county activities, such as serving as chairman of the State's Attorney's Drug Policy Committee when Andrew Sarner was the state's attorney. And more recently, I served as the chairman of the Community Action Board here in Montgomery County. Served 2 terms in that capacity. And I've been involved in other civic activities in Montgomery County. Now, more specifically with regard to the WSSC, at one time, I served as the first labor relations administrator of WSSC. This pretty much brought me in contact with many of the activities of WSSC, and I became familiar with it through that particular endeavor. That was a contract responsibility that I had, I guess, back in 2005 or something along that line. But more recently, I've just retired from the DC government. I was an attorney with the Attorney General's office, and I also served with several agencies of the DC government. And in that capacity, I operated as what they call a disinterested designee, the purpose of which was to adjudicate dismissals, mostly resulting from corruption and other matters of concern that harm the citizens of the District of Columbia and those that did business in the District of Columbia. Those employees who were involved in those types of activities before they were discharged had to come before a hearing officer, and I served in that capacity. Prior to that, I worked at Amtrak and I worked with the internal audit section, sometimes referred to as the precursor of the IG. I had several cases go to trial. One even went to the Supreme Court, but you don't want to hear about that. I did win it on certiorari, but it took us a long time to get there. As I said again, I've been in Montgomery County a long time. I've been involved in many activities out here. And I think I could bring a community touch based on that to this. If you look at my resume, you see I've been involved in too many things you mentioned. But I love Montgomery County, and I want to do what I can to help it succeed.
Thank you. So you go first on this question, Mr. Green. What qualifications do you believe are the most important for the WSSC Water IG to possess?
Well, number one, I think that they should be qualified, and if possible, he or she should be affiliated with a certification from the IG association. There's an association for inspector generals, of which he or she should either be a member of or be willing to join. I think that the inspector general should be independent. He should be tough-minded and fair-minded. I think that he or she should cut no corners. They should strive for timeliness in the resolution of problems. In other words, you shouldn't have an investigation that goes on and on and on and never comes to any logical conclusion. The whole idea is reliability and accountability. I think the people want to know who's accountable for any wrongdoing. And if someone is not, if someone has been wrongly accused, they should be cleared immediately. I think that you can't cut corners and you can't issue any cut cards. Your goal is not to be liked or everybody's friend. I mean, it's nice to be loved by everybody, but that's not your function. Your function is accountability, to root out waste, fraud, and abuse. I think that's pretty much it. But I think that the main thing is independence. You should report to, I guess, maybe two entities: the primary general manager of the organization, and perhaps the WSSC Commission itself. These are the two entities that you should report to maintain your independence.
Thank you. Mr. Cantor.
Fully agree with everything Mr. Green just mentioned. But as far as what we should be looking for, a couple main things I just want to stress in addition to what Mr. Green went through. First thing would be efficiency. There are some efficiency issues these days with WSSC that I know the public is aware of and concerned about in our experiences. So there has to be systems and processes in place that promote efficiency. But having said that, it can't be efficiency at the sake of getting it right. So it's both. I mean, efficiency is going to be very important in the way they're setting up their processes moving forward. But again, they have to also have an eye for the detail. They have to be willing to get into the details of everything going on with WSSC, which, like I've said, I'm familiar with and would certainly want to get into some of the detail with them. So it's efficiency, but not at the sake of getting it right is what I think we should be focused on.
Okay, so you go next this time, Mr. Cantor. What types of WSSC operations are most likely to require IG review?
Sure. Obviously, anything that raises ethical red flags, want them to be looking at. Cost and, again, efficiency overruns, that's going to be big, especially these days. I mean, you have to be thinking of these types of issues as it relates to an ongoing pandemic. So you're looking at that. Any issues dealing with the power grid and how setting up the power grid, emergency contingencies, and just all different types of waste and efficiency issues. So those are the types of issues I think they're going to be dealing with.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Well, I certainly agree, and I would add that procurement, contract letting issues, allegations within WSSC of mismanagement, questionable personnel and hiring practices, the general areas of fraud, waste, and abuse, and the cause of poor customer service. Now, that's what the ratepayers complain about. And I think that WSSC has a rating among the ratepayers of something on the order of 2.6% out of 5. Now, that's not good. That's just not good. And as a former consumer protection guy, I served on the Montgomery County Consumer Protection Board. I would be amiss if I didn't say that you have to consider the ratepayers. When you call and you get an hour waiting time for service, there's something wrong.
Right. Agreed. Okay. If appointed, Mr. Green, how would you position this role to work on racial equity and social justice issues?
First of all, I think that the candidate should have very quickly a knowledge of the WSSC's EEO plan, whatever it is. The candidate should have an understanding of such plans in general, and his contact with such plans during the tenure of his or her career, I think, is important. I know that when I worked at the University of Maryland in the Central Administration, it was very important that we consider the whole question of racial and gender equity in all decisions that were made. Therefore, the IG should be included in all corporate decisions, whether they're capital or otherwise.
Okay, Mr. Cantor?
Sure. Well, obviously, everything should be looked at it through that lens when you're dealing with issues related to government, public works. But when you're thinking about specifically WSSC, water is a basic right that goes along with housing and property rights, and when we have our residents purchasing property and not having efficient water service and transfer of water, it gets into issues where you want to make sure that they're looking out for it in the proper lens, and especially it goes back to looking through things with the lens of living in a pandemic, and unfortunately that affecting different races and socioeconomic classes differently. The IG is going to have to look at it through the lens of making sure everything is being done, again, efficiently, but most importantly, fairly, when it comes to dealing with all of these issues. So.
Okay. Thank you. So back to you first. Interviews of approximately 10 candidates will take place at WSSC headquarters during normal business hours. It is assumed that the interviews will run 2 to 3 days and will be held consecutively, depending on the availability of the interview panel and the candidates. Will you be able to make the necessary time commitment?
Sure. So this is a simple answer. Absolutely. My office is well aware of my interest in this role, fully supportive of it, and whatever time is necessary. So, yeah.
And Mr. Green?
Yes, I have a flexible schedule, sir.
All right. Thank you. So, Mr. Green, appointment committee public members may not have any business or close personal relationships with the commission or its officers, manager, or employees. Are there any potential conflicts of interest of which we should be aware?
No, sir, not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, Mr. Cantor.
Same with me, not to my knowledge, nothing I'm aware of at all as far as conflicts.
Okay, great. Well, those are all the prepared questions. Do my colleagues have any additional questions? Okay. Seeing none, we really appreciate your time today, and again, your interest in putting yourself forward for this. Is a very important role, and we need more vigorous oversight of WSSC in many of our agencies. So we're really grateful for your willingness. We'll caucus, and then we'll get back to you as quickly as possible.
Great.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your willingness to serve.
Certainly.
Thanks a lot.
I agree with that as well. Thank you very, very much, both of you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Bye-bye.